You're listening to Around Comics. 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 You're listening to Around Comics.
From Chicago, this is Around Comics, the comic culture podcast, where we talk about everything in and around the world of comics and comics culture. I'm your host, Mr. Christopher Niesman, and I'm joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Mr. Brian Salazar.
Hey, what's happening there?
How you doing, sir?
You know, getting drunk.
I have bad news for you.
What's that?
You are only the second best-looking rockabilly Hill William redneck on the show this week.
That's okay. I can accept that fully.
Yes. It's true because our wonderful, esteemed, award-winning guest is joining us this week. You know him from such comic book titles as Battle Pope and Brit and The Exterminators and Fear Agent and this little book called The Walking Dead. He's a longtime friend of the show and just all-around great guy, Mr. Tony Moore. Tony, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Can't complain too much.
One of the original.
It was a really excitable intro for this isolation episode of Around Comics.
That's how I roll.
So what's going on in rural wherever you are as we do isolation and COVID-19 craziness? What's going on with you?
I mean, it's weird. Like it's kind of put a crimp in our like going to get groceries and like. Can't go hang out at Lowe's. But other than that, like, Kara and I both work from home and we homeschool our kid. So it hasn't really changed too much of our life. So, yeah, all in all, like, we've kind of, I don't know, weathered it a lot better than I think most people do. I know a lot of people complain about having the kid home all the time. And I'm like,
That's been one of the funny things that I've seen online. Has been a lot of the comic book creators that I think it was Katie Cook that posted something that was like day 87,163 of working in my basement.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's stay at home artistic create. I mean, you're used to working in your basement at home alone.
Yeah, I'd say most of us have probably been social distancing since before we knew what social meant.
Since junior high, like it was enforced in junior high. I think on me, I was kind of social distancing. I didn't intend to. It just happened. I don't know.
You don't choose this life. This life chooses you. But it's I don't know. It hasn't changed too much. I mean, like with spring kicking up, we were kind of going through the laundry list of projects, just to kind of get the house ready for the warmer weather and stuff. And other than that, it hasn't really changed our life too awful much, other than just kind of the hovering dread and anxiety and
yeah.
But other than that, like it's kind of business as usual.
I think it's in degrees. As it's like you're very rural. Sal is suburban, even though in a much larger metro area than I am. And then we actually live in the city in Milwaukee. And I think that the closer you are to a lot of people, the maybe the more weirded out you can get. So that's that's kind of my take on that. Is being around a lot of people and you're much more aware of it. But whatever, it's going to work out.
Yeah, one way or another.
So we talked about in the intro some of the work that you've done in your career. I know that most people listening always want us to jump to Walking Dead, but I want to talk about some of the big news about Fear Agent, which is one of my all-time favorite series that you've worked on, and it sounds like there may be some really cool stuff going on with Fear Agent.
Yeah, you guys have always been super kind to us with that book.
This is, if you can see, this is a con button that I picked up about 6 months before that book ever. I think I got this from Rick in San Francisco at a WonderCon, like however many freaking years ago.
Original issue right there.
Got some smuts on it.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. It's got to be have some grease, battle scars. But yeah, Seth Rogen's production company has picked it up, and they've got it up with Sony Television at Amazon. So it'll be on there alongside like The Boys and other stuff that's on Amazon. I don't really watch them. So.
Whatever anyone has to say about Seth Rogen, he's got excellent taste in comics. I mean, he's already done Preacher, and there was another series.
Green Hornet.
Yeah, yeah, Green Hornet.
Yeah, and he's got a really good track record of like getting shit done. He seems like he doesn't. They don't really step up to the plate. Without seeing it through. So that's
for a guy that seems like a really laid back, just like lazy stoner, he is prolific.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because he loves what he does, and he does what he loves. So it produces a lot of good work, and it you can see the dedication to the stuff shines through, and I think, he's just into this stuff, and is excited to kind of introduce it to a larger audience out there, and I think it's great.
Yeah, we're kind of at this. You what? What was that?
For one, and for it.
I'm sure you are. As we're kind of entering this like new golden age of streaming television, and it's almost like that's overtaken movies in where a lot of properties are going, just because of the sheer volume of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that exciting as someone who works at the ground level of character creation and world building, to say, I know it's not your end goal. You've always been a guy who's been really straightforward about, I'm here to make comics, but it's got to be a thrill to see that stuff get adapted into another media.
Yeah, I mean, with the the new paradigm of television is like budgetarily and production quality wise, it's on par or better than most stuff in movies. And I think what appeals to just about every comics creator is the fact that it's long form. I think before kind of this type of television and stuff had really taken hold, I think everyone, if you got a movie, you're like, yeah, that's going to be an awesome representation, seeing it come to life, and it's going to look really nice, and it's going to be really cool. But in the back of your heart, you know that it's going to be like an abbreviated version. You're never going to be able to cover all the ins and outs, especially if it's something that really ran for a long time. If it's a shorter graphic novel project or something like that, those are perfectly suited for movies. But most creators have known any long form thing is going to have to get really boiled down. For a movie,
it's going to be hard to do Transmetropolitan the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And then most TV stuff was like cheaper and like, but you were like, I get the long form stuff, we get more time to play with it, but it's probably not going to be nice. But now that's not really how it goes, especially if you get the right network behind it.
You get some Bezos money behind that Fear Agent. We're actually going to see some cool shit. I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, like talking to the Sony TV guys and stuff when they were still shopping it around. The first thing they said was, "Look, we're gonna every network we go to and talk to, like, kind of the first thing we're going to tell them is this is going to be one of the most expensive shows. It might be the most expensive show you have, and if you're not okay with it, then move on."
Yeah, for people out there that aren't familiar with Fear Agent, and I'll grab. Let me reach deep into the archives here.
You don't have to. I can do it here. You just keep talking, Chris. I got it.
Here's my
producer.
Fear Agent Omnibuy. Give people the quick rundown of, if it's possible, of what the basic idea of Fear Agent is and kind of what they can expect if they and I encourage anyone who's not read the comics, go back and read the comics because they're awesome.
Basically, we're following a kind of hard-scrabble spaceman in the direct aftermath of a big interplanetary war that involved kind of Earth being the clashing point for for three alien races that were at war with each other, and they all, Earth just kind of got caught in that in the middle of all that fracas, and was just basically collateral damage, but was absolutely wrecked. And Heath Houston is our hero, and he managed to survive, and but at a pretty great loss. And now he is, just kind of wandering the cosmos as a hired gun, mostly taking jobs as like an exterminator of different alien races, and stuff like that. There's like a tiered system of intelligences that are like considered ethical to kill and all this stuff. And he tries to follow the rules, but that wouldn't be very fun. And that's where we take off. And
what I love about that series is that I had never really read EC Comics before Fear Agent, and in a lot of ways, I mean, that for you and for Rick Remender, the writer of the series, in a lot of that series was a big love letter to EC Comics, right?
Oh yeah, totally. So when I finished working on The Walking Dead, I'd done a cover gig for Rob Zombie's Spook Show International, and he wanted like a Tales from the Crypt, weird science fantasy type thing, and on this cover. And so I did it with the rocket ship and the bubble helmet and all that stuff. And I sent it over to Rick, and we just started shooting the shit, and we were like, man, we should do a book like this. And at that point, I was not really that familiar with the sci-fi stuff. I only had a few of those books, but I had a bunch of the horror stuff and quite a few of the crime ones. And then, we just started batting stuff back and forth, and I'd say within a week we had the book pretty much like figured out, and just kind of hit the ground running with it. And but it was always intended to be our love letter to EC, because they had so many different genres. And we thought this would be a fun way to kind of scratch all our genre itches.
It's got them all. You've got Two-Fisted Tales, World War II stories. You've got a freaking Western in there, weird science. I mean, it's crazy what you were able to cram into that book.
Yeah, and well, thanks. Yeah, we were, like I said, we just wanted it to be, just relentless, and people seem to connect with it. Like the ones who, would pick it up and read it, seemed like they connected really well with it. And it was a long effort. I mean, I think we worked on the book for damn near 10 years and did 32 issues like in between all of our other projects, because it was at the time, like we were still kind of in the heyday of horror stuff, like Walking Dead was still kind of like gold standard creator-owned stuff at that point, and so the market was wanting more and more horror stuff, but I was, kind of like I didn't want to do like another zombie thing, and we were kind of I don't know, kind of over that feeling, and it wasn't really getting jazzed, and so we thought, like, I don't know, maybe what's the next big thing? Like I think they had just. I think Deadwood had just started, and we're like, well, maybe Weston's the next big thing. Like, it's really good. I don't know. Like, see what that is. And we're like, I don't know, man, there's so many other good things. Like, anything could be the next big thing. So let's just find something that kind of speaks to us. And, if we can kind of play around with it and whatever, then, let's explore it and see what happens.
And it looked like, it felt like Rick was putting out something like every month. It was like a new title from Rick at that point.
Yeah,
he was
really getting after it. And but yeah, Fear Agent for a long time was kind of this Sisyphus and the boulder scenario. It felt like every time we'd get ahead a little bit, something would fall apart, and it was just really hard to, like the sales on it were never really good enough for it to pay for itself and like pay both of us like a living wage. So we were both taking on other gigs and then trying to juggling them. So I was doing Exterminators at the same time as Fear Agent there in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm not built for multitasking and that type of stuff. I will freely admit it. I tried to juggle them both and ultimately kind of fucked both of them up.
Sal, I know Sal wants to ask a question, but I have one of my favorite remembrances whenever we had you and Simon Oliver on the show a moon's age ago, and you're like, Simon, stop writing scripts that say avalanche of bugs.
oh, that's every fucking writer. Like that's, I'll have to dig out the script somewhere, but there's in Fear Agent, the big fight scene that's on the moon base, spoilers, there was, like, I think it said, like, pages, 21 through 25, go nuts. That was it. I was like, thanks. That's awesome. Great. So I also get to write this part and draw it.
Way to go, Kirby.
Yeah.
Go get him, Kirby.
Yeah, it was great. But no, like every writer loves that. Or like, giant crowd scene, 200 people. It's like, yeah, that's 15 fucking letters, but that's going to take me 5 days.
I remember being at a convention one time, and I'm walking, and they're closing the convention down for the day, and Chris Moreno is sitting at a table, and Chris is one of my favorite people. I'm like, Chris, are you going to come out and join us for drinks? And he looks at me, he's like, takes a writer 15 seconds to say, Batman crashes through a window. Takes me all fucking night to draw it, man. I'll see you tomorrow.
That's it, man. That is it. Andy Parks was inking me on Exterminator for a while, and he said we should be getting paid by the line. I would definitely notice, like, data-wise, pages that are a little more open or have at least more, like, heavy spotted blacks and more open whites. Don't take up as much data as a page with a lot of shit all over it. And I could definitely tell just looking through the, my windows and seeing like how many megabytes something was. I could tell like, oh, that was a rough one. Like, because it would be like 5 times as much data as the neighboring pages if it was like a tidal wave of cockroaches or some bullshit. Yeah. But yeah,
nice. I'm going to go grab a glass of wine, and you and Sal can talk since I've been taking up all your time.
Well, geez, don't leave me on the spot. How you doing, buddy? How's it been?
I'm doing all right.
So I went to Memphis over this earlier in the year, and I went to Sun Records, Sun Studios.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and got to hold Johnny Cash's guitar, and and Elvis's mic, and I thought about you, and I wore my Johnny Cash shirt just for you tonight because I know, you would appreciate that.
Man. Indeed, that's killer.
So, in this whole pandemic thing, I have a weird, sickness about like, well, I'm gonna lean into it. So I read a couple of series of things, and of course, The Walking Dead. I went back and I read Volume 1 of The Walking Dead, and it was interesting all these years later to sit and read it and think about it, and I was amazed at the very end. Something occurred to me, and I wanted to ask you, and you may not have an answer for it or not, but at the very end of Volume 1 is the scene where Rick comes back and he's leaving for Atlanta, and he sees Bicycle Girl, as she's been named now from the show, but he stops for a moment and he sheds a tear. And I thought this time reading it, I'm like, that's kind of weird. It's kind of odd after everything that he had experienced up to that point, that he would feel that emotional about someone that he didn't know. And so my question is, did he know her? And maybe it wasn't part of the script, maybe it wasn't ever something that you guys even talked about, but it was something that occurred to me at that time of like, did Rick know her? Is that why he was so emotional? Or it was simply, may have just been a good way to end the chapter, sort of, but I kind of felt like it made more sense that he knew her.
Well, I mean, so that happens at the end of the first issue, and he, at that point, I don't think he's met.
Is that the first issue? Am I wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was the first end of the volume.
No, the end of the volume is the showdown with Shane.
Oh, right. Okay.
But yeah, so at that point, he's left the hospital. He's gone back home. He's seen like nobody's around. His neighborhood's a wasteland, and he's really had fairly limited exposure to the zombies. Really, only in the hospital at that point, because he went home and then met humans, and so he's only seen a few at this point, and he's fresh out of a coma. So I would imagine at that point he's fairly emotionally raw and like fairly shocked. But I mean, Cynthiana's a small town, so there's a 99% chance that he knew this person at least in some sort of cursory capacity, as an acquaintance or something. Because I mean, a town that size,
and he's the sheriff.
Hearing it, and so I'm sure, he's got to at least have seen her or something,
right? I was just sort of amazed at that point of like, I've read it. It's probably my third or fourth reading of that, to be honest, and it was just, I was sort of amazed, like, wow, I'm still pulling something out of this book all these years later. And that moment of like, oh, I bet he knew her. And like I said, I didn't expect you to have a definitive answer on it, because I'm sure when you guys were doing it, it wasn't necessarily, something thought of or conscious. It may have been a subconscious thing or not anything at all.
I think if you put it on the page, I mean, there's thought into it, and it's a full page and a half. That sequence, and I read it as it's a huge amount of humanity for him to stop and put this pitiful monster out of its misery.
Right.
But so I've talked to a lot of people about kind of this idea that, especially Gen Xers now, we've been through 9/11. We've been through the financial collapse of 2007, and now we've been in this isolation COVID-19 thing. Every time, and I hate to be able to say that every time this shit has happened, it's like 4 or 5 days into it, the first time was 9/11. That that was, what was that, on a Tuesday, I think. And I remember this moment on Friday, once the craziness had kind of stopped, and there was a quiet moment where I sat down in my living room. I was living in St. Louis at the time, and just emotionally let go and just, wept. And it happened in 2007, and it's going to happen at some point in the next week or so. I'm just going to have this emotional breakdown, and then it's going to be over, and then we're going to move on. And that scene was like this moment of quiet where he's not being chased and zombies on his heels, where he's able to have a moment of humanity, and that tear, I think, was reflective of that. It's like you have to have that emotional release at some point in a catastrophe.
And at this point, it's a demonstration that he's not been hardened to the world yet. This shit is like already going haywire. At that point, that's the first zombie he had shot. That's the first zombie he had purposefully killed. And he hadn't gone to war with like other humans at that point, outside of like his job. But the real apocalypse, the post-apocalyptic kind of warfare stuff, like none of that stuff had happened yet. So he still was, had a connection to other people just because they're people. And, when he looks down and sees that, like, it's hard to not, I don't know, anytime a reasonable person sees someone hurt, like, you hurt for them, because it's, that's empathy. Unless you're a fucking sociopath, then it's a natural human response.
Well, I'm a little cold. I don't know if I'm a sociopath.
Is that where you get whenever you go to conventions and you're like, Shane is my favorite character? You're like, whoa.
At the same time, Shane, Shane, especially in the show versus the comic, he was a much deeper character in the show because he hung around for longer. But it's the same premise. Is that he really got punished basically for just being ahead of the curve. He had already accepted it and was ready to just move into it, where everybody else was holding out hope that it was going to get better and that it wouldn't come to that. And he was like, no, that's just what it is. And it was ready to start fucking dudes up. And
those are the people that fucking scare me right now.
So it's a weird dichotomy. And I think, we probably all have a little bit of both of those in us. I know I do. I think, when it comes to my loved ones, it didn't matter who, if it was a threat or what, I do everything in my power to defend them. But at the same time, like right now, COVID-19 stuff, our, the numbers are creeping up, and it's, not awesome to see, but so many people still have this callous reaction to it. It's like, oh, it's only so deadly, blah blah blah, and it's not so bad. And it's like, do you know how many 10,000 dead bodies is? How many dead bodies do you want in your house? Because 3 is too many. Any is too many.
At the same time, don't you think that's a defense mechanism too? It's something because I keep going back and forth of oh, this isn't that big of a deal. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. And it's almost, to me, it's like a defense mechanism for people to not lose their complete shit. Because, if you go online,
you don't acknowledge it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to acknowledge how bad it is. So you almost become callous to the situation, and you almost, become defensive against any sort of hyperbole, because you don't want to let that in, because we're teetering on the edge of sanity with it,
Well, I think at the point you start admitting potential physical vulnerability, that requires a certain amount of emotional vulnerability, and that like there are certain people that when that they feel themselves starting to that gate starting to creak open, they slam it back shut.
Sure.
And so
it's an ego thing too.
I mean,
I mean, you
oh yeah.
Oh, so I think especially for men.
Yeah.
There's a
this shit
men
can't.
don't-
This ain't ain't gonna hurt me. This isn't gonna do it. This isn't gonna be what it is. I'm not gonna let this.
Well,
almost...
I mean, that's why we have to refer to it as a war, right? And as a battle, we're gonna win this fight. And so, okay, Well, I tell you, let's talk about something a little bit cheerier and
Yes.
A little bit, yeah. I'm tired of talking about this shit. So, in addition to comics work, you've been pretty busy in the last year doing stuff for Tyler Childers, who is a fantastic singer-songwriter. I don't want to pigeonhole him into being, country singer.
That's what he calls himself. Like,
and that's the great thing about him. I would call him a country singer, but he's not a new country singer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's been awesome. I heard that album Purgatory. I heard Universal Sound on the radio right after that album had come out, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is really good." I got to go home and buy that album because even if this is the only good song on it, it's totally worth it. And I bought it, and I listened to it pretty much nonstop, like the whole time. I mean, I still do, but especially that first couple weeks, or probably a couple months after I got it. If I didn't listen to it at least like twice a day, I felt like I was like my day was like missing. And
You'd failed homework.
It just really connected with me, and I love it. There's something about like most country music has gotten so vapid and so surface, and there's no like storytelling, and there's no like humanity in it, and like Tyler, grew up listening to stuff that did have those things, and wanted to make something that connects with people in a real way, and boy, it fucking did. Like as soon as I listened to it, I was like, that's a real life, like that. I recognize that. Like these are feelings that I have had. This is a life I've lived. Like I can recognize this, and I fell for it just completely. And then he had played around this area a whole lot, but we had never gotten to see him, and we were like, oh man, we'll never get to see him at a show now because he's going to be huge. And we had tickets to go see John Prine, and that had been canceled because he was sick, and they delayed the show, and then when they re-announced it, in that meantime, he had picked up Tyler as an opener, and so we were like, oh sweet, we've already got tickets for that. And on their way out the door to the show, I just looked over on the kitchen table, and there was one of my Baphomet pins, and I was like, oh, I'll take one of those, and maybe I'll, if I run into him, if he like comes out and signs stuff or whatever, I'll give him one. And went to the show, and I was talking to his tour manager, his road manager, and at that point I just thought he was the merch guy. And I had two of them in my pocket, and I gave one to him for Tyler, and then I was like, I'll give him the other one, and then he won't steal that one, and there'll be a better chance that it'll actually get back to him. And fast forward like a couple weeks, and he reached out on Instagram and said, hey man, thanks for the pin. Been looking at your work, really enjoyed it. Want to see if you'd be interested in teaming up with my buddy Jimbo to work on the album cover for the next album. And fuck yes. So,
yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Yes,
That's-
yes,
that's
sir.
been
I would.
Pretty much like all I've been like. I'd say 90% of what I've been doing like ever since has been working with him on stuff.
Yeah, it's the name of the record is Country Squire, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I did some concept art for the All Yorn video, which is the big like love song kind of radio cut on there.
So
And
so is it a bigger thrill for you? And I know that they're two different creatures, but is it a bigger thrill for you to see an episode of Walking Dead and see the, created by and see your name there, or to like look at a clip of like Jimmy Fallon or Colbert where he's on and they hold up the record and you're like, oh yeah, that's mine.
It's weird. It's a different thing. In some ways, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, because when I see like Jimmy Kimmel hold up the album, like he's got his physical hands on my piece of artwork. Like, like the Walking Dead stuff. Shit. I've gone to so many conventions where people wearing Walking Dead, T-shirts, dressed as the fucking characters that I designed. Walk right past my booth like I'm a fucking ghost because they don't know they don't like they know the books and they don't know me, and so like that's one thing. But yeah, like when someone has their hand on my artwork and I see it and like, oh, that's just rad as shit. And like All Yorn. Well, when the album came out, it debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts, which was awesome. Like that. So seeing the Billboard listings and all the albums written out and seeing the picture over in the corner, like, #1, my album cover, like that was fucking awesome. And then when the Grammy nominations came out and All Yorn was up for the Grammy, like again, like that was killer because that was the album I did the cover art for, and I did the concept art for like the animated band and stuff in the video. So I don't know, man. It's different. I think maybe because like The Walking Dead like show is not something I was like hands on with versus this stuff is. Like
this is yours,
stuff that I'm working on.
What's the mindset? And I only know this a little. I mean, just from the outside because I'm an art director by day. The difference between being a sequential artist and working on especially a creator-owned property, where with the music stuff, I mean, you're really commercial illustrator. And designer, do you feel like it's a really different mindset and a different skill set that you have to come at that with?
Not too much. I would imagine most of the most times you have this type of gig, it would feel more like working on corporate comics, like drawing, Deadpool or Punisher or whatever.
Okay.
Like there's things I love, and I want to invest myself in them in a way that's, I want to invest myself in a way, that I feel like I'm giving it my best and everything, but at the same time, like I can't become just so emotionally attached to it that I feel like it's mine. And that took me a long time to learn in comics because I come from creator-owned comics where, like, I put everything I had into everything I did because it was mine. And then, when I'm working on stuff that's not mine, I didn't know how to turn that part of myself off and just do the fucking work. And so it took me a while to get there with that. And, like, this isn't the first album cover I've done. So, it was, I went into it treating it like I would any of those other commercial kind of gigs. But Tyler was much more accepting and open to collaboration and spitballing stuff, and like it felt like the process. It made it feel like the process of a creator-owned, interaction again, and that fresh week because all the weird ideas and stuff that I put in that, like 90% of them came from him.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
So it's like he just dumped out this bag of Legos and was like, "Here's what I've got. This is what I'd like to try to build. Can we build it?" And I was like, "Well, we can figure it out." And so yeah, like he came over to the house, and Jimbo, the graphic designer that did the gatefold inside the album and stuff, and did all the other album covers and merch and stuff, he came over. And we just sat here at the kitchen table for probably 8 hours, just spitballing ideas, having like a big powwow. And was like, "Here's what I'd like." And he was like, "So what would that look like?" And I had the iPad out, so I would like mock it up. And I was like, "Oh, here's what it would look like, here." And he's like, "What if we did this?" And I was like, "Okay, well, let's find out." And so, we just played around with it right there on the spot. And I think we were able to probably get, I don't know, a couple months worth of work done. Right there at the kitchen table, because it was like a bullpen. We were able to get instant feedback and everything. But like super collaborative, and I could run ideas past him if he liked it. He was all for it. If he had reservations, I told him, like, "You're not gonna hurt my feelings. I'm a big boy. Like, if it's not your jam, move on." And then ultimately, like when the album came out, he didn't even put his name on the front of it, which, again, like, that's fucking nuts. Like, I like my whole life I've worked in an industry where I guaranteed to have my drawings covered up with words. And
and he didn't Bob Kane you.
This is his freaking his like big chance out, his second album, and it's got a bigger audience and everything else. And he was like, "No, I don't." Like, we were going through like logo treatments and stuff, and ultimately, we probably looked at 20 different versions of how we were going to write Country Squire and how we were going to write his name and all this stuff. And he was like, "You know what? I don't like any of them better than just the artwork. So let's just leave it just the art." And I was like,
"That's bold.
Yeah,
that's fucking bold, man.
Bold as fuck, yeah." And like, I was honored. Like, I mean, like, yeah. I don't even have words for that, because I've never experienced that before. Like, it's crazy. But like, that's how it's been, like, pretty much the whole time, So.
He's an artist too.
Yeah,
so I mean, he understands, what it means, to put yourself into that. I'm sure. Yeah, it's got to be a different thing than working with publishers, or necessarily people that aren't artists, that aren't creators, aren't making things. They don't have, and not to make them seem evil, but they just don't understand what it means to make something. They don't have a concept of it.
Right.
They can't do it. Otherwise, they would be.
And one thing that's really cool with what Tyler has done, he's made efforts to own everything that he does. So, and he's done some stuff that's kind of unprecedented in the music industry by doing this, and like long term, it's going to benefit him really well. But that's why he's so personally invested in it, and he is just really cool to just, take the ride and embrace something weird and do whatever the hell he wants, because he doesn't have like 100 people at the studio saying like, "Oh no, you can't do that, it won't sell." And he's like, "Fuck it, I think it's awesome, I'm gonna do it." And like, just does. And, it's a lot like creator-owned comics. It's it's wild.
It's neat seeing guys like him and like Sturgill Simpson, who are.
I was going to bring him up.
Great. Yeah, I mean, they're breaking bounds and like reclaiming some of the rebel spirit in country music, which for my ear and my taste, commercial country music is it reminds me of like 1988 top 40 music where there's just absolutely no teeth or soul or any energy to it. And
Yeah.
it feels like there's a moment that's getting ready to come with country music that's going to reclaim it as having this kind of, I hate saying rock and roll soul for country, but certainly more of a teeth and claw feel to it.
Yeah, well, I'd say like there's a good portion of people who had just kind of gotten tired of the vapid, like whatever the country had become. I think yeah, I would say around that kind of Islands in the Stream, Glenn. I feel like maybe it started to fall apart with Glenn Campbell and kind of the countrypolitan stuff when they were really leaning more on like pop music production for country sounds, and they stopped looking to bluegrass and mountain music and kind of the older forms and storytelling. It became less about that stuff and more about it was like disco.
Sequins and Hairspray.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
like the rhinestone cowboy kind of age. It kind of took over everything, and it choked out like the roots of it. And
Yeah, and that's not to say like the Bakersfield sound was bad, because give me some Buck Owens, I'm cool with that.
yeah. But I mean, Buck Owens was kind of ostracized, at the time, and he took out an ad in, I forget what magazine, or it was a newspaper or something, that said like Buck Owens is a country musician, and he was saying like, look, this is different than the stuff you're hearing on the radio, but it doesn't make it not country, and it's different. But at that time, I think it maybe gave them like a common enemy with like the older like bluegrass and all the other kind of subgenres of country that had gotten cut off by the countrypolitan kind of
that was all
sound
coalescing in Nashville. Yeah, the Nashville sound.
Yeah.
So,
and then,
it's
and then that soup kind of like became hee-haw. Like you got that mix of bluegrass and Owens and all these guys, and I don't know. It's a weird.
Speaking of the hair and the look, I do have a question here from Paul Conan. He says, Chris, I can't tune in on the live stream, but can you ask what grease he uses in his hair? I wonder if he's a classic Petro base or if he's a newfangled water soluble guy.
Usually, like at shows, I go like Aquanet. I go straight up like Porter Wagner,
Old school.
like Tammy Wynette. It is
Tammy
black and
Wynette.
white. Because I'm getting up and like I'm bending over and getting under the table, and I'm getting up and down, taking pictures with people or whatever. And I'm trapped behind the table all day, and I don't have a lot of time to go to the bathroom and look at myself and make sure I'm still pretty. So I just lock it down before I get there, and that shit won't move until I'll be like a skeleton in the ground, and my hair will still be like laminated.
That's awesome. Sal, what do you got? I've been picking up all of his time.
Oh no, I'm running here behind the scenes.
I know you're producing the show. You're producing the magic.
Trying. No, you had brought up Sturgill Simpson. I'm wondering, are you a Sturgill Simpson fan?
Me?
Oh yeah.
No, not you. I don't care if you are, Chris. I'm Tony.
I love him, Sal. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, I think he's great. I'd been listening to Sturgill for years. Like back when I lived in Kansas City, like Jason Aaron and I would, trade stuff back and forth. And, when Latour was coming and going out there, and when that kind of whole scene of guys was, a lot more tight knit, and just because we were in proximity. I love all the stuff I had heard from Sturgill back then, and just kind of every new album that he comes out and reinvents the sound. I love it all. I love it more every time.
Yeah, he's definitely doing some things in that genre that I don't think have ever been done before. There's, quite a fusion of sounds and quite a, just his sort of balls that he has. And that's, you talked about a little bit before. It's like country music has become so banal, and it's like, where are the balls? Where are the risk takers? Where's the rebels in country music? Because that's, when I think of country music,
never went away. They never went away.
Well, they just
true.
didn't become they weren't popular anymore. They just, weren't making. Well, I do have another question in regards. You did the poster for Tyler, the Live at the Fillmore poster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've done a few posters for him, but yeah.
That one
It's
has
a goddamn graphic design masterpiece, man. That thing is awesome.
Well, I love the Rat Fink, sort of style to it. Was that your idea? Was that Tyler's? Was that a combination?
Yeah, no, they asked me, they gave me a handful of dates, and they said, here are a bunch of shows. We'd like you to do a few of them if you're interested, as many as you're comfortable with, and then, spread some around. And so the Detroit one, I wanted to do a poster for Fillmore because it was fucking Fillmore.
Right.
And I was thinking, like, Detroit, I could do something car related, and I had some different ideas. I thought about doing like a crusty, like car gears, like equipment kind of feeling, like biomechanical thing, almost like a weird, like redneck H.R. Geiger kind of thing. But I kept kind of getting pulled into the like hot rod show poster stuff, and I was like, I'm going to throw this together because it'd be fun to do. I don't know if Tyler would go for it, but I did like mocked up a sketch and I sent it over to him. I knew he and his manager were both all about it. And so I just laid into it, tried to put the whole, the sum of my, like growing up reading, cartoons, magazines.
I was going to ask, I'm like, obviously you were a fan of cartoons. Like that was,
Oh, yeah. Look, everything I know about drawing cars, I learned from George Trosley's, like, little how-to things. Like taking the wheel, and making it an ellipse and then having it lurch forward to put motion into a car because it's, kind of static thing. Like all the stuff that people put in those articles I was reading as a kid, and I try to, remember it and put it into action when I'm doing that.
That was like one of the
now.
That was some of the earliest tutorials that I remember ever reading. Like that was this, those articles that he put out there of how to draw cars were some of the earliest stuff that I ever remember seeing. Like, oh wow, this is like there's a you can learn this. It's not just a talent thing. Like you can learn how to draw things.
Yeah, and it was, like for me that was like around the time like the school library had all those like Draw 50 whatever by Lee J. Ames, who used to draw Tarzan.
Yeah.
It was all that how like step by step stuff, and I love those Walter Foster books you could get at Walmart, like the big, like it was like a piece of poster board folded in half, and it was a big oversized book with the how-to steps.
I remember those.
I don't know how to get those, but like all that stuff was kind of in the nexus at the same time for me, and so. Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to separate them in my head because, I was like, in elementary school or whatever, like that's how I learned how to draw.
Well, one of the things about this poster specifically that I appreciate the most is the fact that the trailer is not quite as big as the truck. The truck is really, and it's got the
perspective.
Well, come on,
but he's bigger than both of them put together.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, it's okay, and that is not the poster that I was thinking of. It's awesome. It's the Tyler Childers with Marty Stewart at the Ryman poster. That's the one that is fucking ridiculous because it's two posters in one. There's a backlight or a black light element to that poster that is just it hurt my brain thinking about what you went through to design and produce that poster. It is, and this is coming from a graphic designer and art director, it is something that I would never even fucking attempt.
Yeah,
not in a million years.
I mean, it damn near killed me, but I
yeah,
got
it's amazing. It's
smile
amazing. It's amazing.
And yeah, I was like, it's the Ryman. Tyler's got a 4-night stand at the Ryman, and I get to draw the Marty Stewart night. Like, fucking hell, I'm gonna swing for the fences on this. And it was easily the most ambitious poster project I've ever done.
Oh my god, it's ridiculous.
2 posters. It whipped my ass. I mean,
when
fell apart.
When it was done and he saw the finished product, what was the reaction on that? Were you afraid, or were you just like, he's gonna fucking die?
Well, I'd sent him mock-ups along the way. Kind of told him what my idea was, because I wasn't gonna like invest weeks of busting my ass on this thing and have him turn it in and him go, I don't like it. So I tried to make sure, like, as we went, like, I'm like, if you're not on board with this idea, then tell me now. We'll find something else that you dig. But that wasn't how it went. So I pitched him that idea, and he said, "That sounds awesome, man. Go for it." And then when we saw him in print, it's the first print job I've gotten back on something that I had nothing to complain about. Like, I've had plenty of stuff come to the printer, and I'm like, oh man, like they didn't really baby the screen like they could have, and so some of these halftones kind of fell apart, and some of the detail like fell out, or they weren't keeping their ink thin enough, and or they didn't match the colors properly. These guys just fucking nailed it, and
isn't that's the best? It's the best feeling in the world. And Sal's showing it on the feed right now. That is the black light version of it, which is amazing. Speaking, and I'm looking at all these at ColonelTonyMoore.com, which kind of all the stuff that we're talking about. You've got a pretty extensive online gallery and marketplace for people that want to buy prints and all sorts of merch. There's great Fury Agent stuff, Walking Dead, Tyler Childers, all sorts of stuff. So
it's a
go.
Brian helped me put it together. I wouldn't have that site if it wasn't for Brian.
I did, yeah. I was honored when you asked me to help you out with the website. I was like, well, absolutely. Are you kidding me? For sure. If you need me to come in and revamp, if you need an update, I'm certainly available.
Well,
so
sweet, yeah. I've loved it. Maybe we'll play with the set dressing on it a little bit here before too long. I don't know. I don't know if people have gotten if it's gotten stale on people yet, but I like it though. It's awesome.
Well, I see a bunch of shit that's sold out, so must not be too stale.
Yeah, I guess it's doing okay. It's done all right. Yeah, that's
one of them fucking Ryman posters. They're all gone.
I keep a certain amount held back in my stash. We can talk after the show.
We'll talk offline. Well, speaking of, sir, I don't know if we need to wrap up. If you need to run off, I'm fine to. I can go for another glass of wine, but it's up for you.
I don't mind talking. You can take a little trip to the bar with me if you want.
Yeah, let's absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to talk more tattoos. I know you and your lovely wife have gotten heavily into tattoos.
I'm not gonna show them all our garbage. Oh, I won't show them. So here's part of my whiskey stash.
Nice.
Nice, very nice.
Fit up on the shelf.
I'm gonna refill as we speak. As we're doing this, we might as well refill.
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
Reload.
I still have about a third of a quart jar of fucking moonshine floating around here somewhere that you brought me at a C2. Yeah, that's the stuff. Yeah.
Still County's finest. I've also got some like alarmingly easy to drink blueberry moonshine. That is,
oh Jesus!
So it's so fucking good.
Oh, my wife wanted me to say hello to you. To you guys. My wife Kim. When I said, "Oh, we're talking to Tony Moore," she was like, "Oh, from Cherry City or Cherry Capital Con when we were hanging out."
Oh yeah.
She had a good time then.
Man, that was a great show, man. That was I don't know, man. I think back on that one, and it was really kind of unlike almost any other show I'd ever been to, and I had not really wanted to do it because it was, in a time where, we were hitting all the big shows like, New York and San Diego and stuff, and like Walking Dead had, was still kind of in its TV, like prime.
Uh-huh.
And, that was a time when like I could go to a con, and if we played our cards right, I could make as much in a weekend as I made in a whole year of drawing like shit from Marvel.
Sure.
And, like that peak, quickly went away. But so at that time, I wasn't giving small shows really a fair shake. And then I went to that one, and I was like, holy fuck, like, it's so relaxing. It's so fun. Like, I can actually talk to people.
That was a fun show.
Interact, and, like, it was awesome. And it just, like, it totally, 180 turned me around on all that. Now, I don't even like, I haven't been to San Diego or New York or C2E2 in years. I don't even remember the last time I went. And I don't miss it.
I honestly, me and the kids will go to smaller local shows before we go to the big shows, just because they're more like shows used to be. They're more like a comic book show.
Yeah, exactly.
Windy City, baby.
Man, that was the feeling I realized I was missing, and like I found I was like increasingly unhappy at cons. Like every time one came up, I wasn't excited anymore. Like I used to get so.
Well, they're all they were all the same show. They're all the same show.
Yeah, and it was just like grind. Like I felt like fucking Jack Torrance of those things. Like it was, like I remember, and I had like a big argument. He's like, "How come you don't fucking come out and like drink and hang out with us anymore?" It's like, dude, I can't. Like, I got kids around me at home. Like I got commission sketches like out the ass that if I don't give them done, I can give these guys their money back. I'm not leaving that money on the table, and I cannot go fuck up with my friends and then come home and not have given it my level best. And like, if I don't come home with a week's worth of money, then I can't be gone for a week.
It was this thing of like, I remember because we met like really early in your career. Walking Dead had come out obviously, but it wasn't, there wasn't a TV show, it wasn't this global phenomenon kind of thing. And I remember like there was this change, and with you and a bunch of other guys, but with you specifically, like there was this change of like, I could go to a show and I could sit down and talk to you for a little while and say hi, and and then it was, I couldn't get past the crowd to like wave and say hello.
Tony,
And one of the
how you doing?
victim of your own success kind of scenarios, and like it did, man. It was just I would come home from those things like like my pockets were full and I was happy about that, but I just was ass whipped. Like I would come home from New York and have to sleep for like 4 days, just because like I had nothing left. Like I just couldn't do it, and it just wasn't fun anymore. And I was like,
It's got to
I
be a
would
weird.
rather at this point like not make so much money and then just like whatever. Like I mean, like I was noticing attrition that shows anyway. Like nothing stays gold forever.
It's
And
got to
so,
be.
yeah. Once
It's got
I
to be a little
noticed, like,
tough
the
to.
ride was kind of coming to an end, I was like, I think I'm ready for that anyway.
But it's got to be tough to
You know,
sort
my-
of get to that because you work so hard to be successful. You work, for so many years for people to take notice, and then they do, and it becomes, in your case, something that maybe was overwhelming and not what you expected. It's got to be tough to sort of like go, well, I'm gonna pull back from that, or I'm gonna, it's a double-edged sword, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, like, I always try to, like Scrooge McDuck said, you work smarter, not harder. And when I realized, I was like, oh man, I'm not working smart at all. Like, I'm just working hard, and it's killing me. I'm not. Then I started looking to, like, diversify, the income and have, like, a passive income stream, because most comics artists, and they're all feeling it now, a lot of us have this tendency to focus on what's on our plate at the moment, and that's it. And so they don't have any sort of passive income or, something that's working
Reciprocal.
in the background for them. And that's, conventions helping me kind of build the safety net so I didn't have to take jobs that I didn't want. But at the same time, like the website became like the crab pot. I could set that, come check on it every few days, and there'd be some food in there. And having like a more diverse, more irons in the fire.
It's really interesting how you say that. So I'm freelance photographer is part of my income. It's what I did for full time for a couple of years. And there's a guy named Zach Arias. Follow him, look at his videos. Amazing photographer. Really kind of gets it from the creative and the business side. But he said there's a guy named David Hobby who is another one of my favorite photographers. And he said no one in this business is better than David Hobby at setting out different buckets that collect money. There's no one cash stream that he relies on. He sets out different buckets everywhere, and they all make little amounts of cash. And if any of those one buckets goes away, he's going to be fine. And that's the life of a freelancer. And it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a mix of, like some jobs, it's fast nickels and slow dimes, but you don't have to choose between them if you're doing it right. You can have a way to, like have one be working in the background while you're actively invested in another one. And, they all add up to dollars. But yeah, like putting all your eggs in one basket is, I mean, it's what almost every one of us does, which is how we get trapped in shit that we don't really want to do.
It's how you end up on the Hero Initiative help list.
Yeah, and
right.
It is like I feel bad for lots of guys that are workhorses who are just like, God bless them, and they're putting the books out in ways that I'm not built to do. But like, I mean, even those guys can be diversifying their,
I look at a guy from that kind of era that we were talking about, like Russ Heath. I see so much Russ Heath in your work, and And Sal, Sal and I used to, literally salivate over his work. And it's a sad story. I mean, that's an amazing artist that, just in latter days, just not good. And so it's, we always used to joke going to conventions that Tony's the talent, Tony's wife is the brains.
Oh, for sure. She found me in the ditch, and I'd be there now if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, I mean, she really kind of drew a line in the sand, and it's like, you're not going to take advantage of this talent. And she forcefully one of the best managers I've seen for creators I don't know the behind the scenes whenever you guys are away from conventions, but for someone who takes no shit and is like, no, you're going to pay fucking market value. This is what it is. Done.
Well, and the other thing was, Tony's such a nice guy. There was a time where, and I got it. I understood it too. It was like, it was almost like you felt bad asking people for money for your work, which was so ridiculous.
I mean, that's the epidemic in comics among almost all comics artists, is we all devalue our work, devalue our time and our effort. I mean,
sure.
Every one of us feels guilty for asking anybody to pay money for it.
Do you think
it's weird? I don't know why.
Do you think it's sort of like the fraud syndrome that people have? A lot of right,
absolutely. Because so I went through this little period right as I was starting comics where I had this notion invade my mind that all of my heroes were now my competition, and I was like, I'm fucked. And it froze me. I mean, I couldn't do shit for a month. I just couldn't get it out of my head, and it just fucked me up. And then when I realized that's not really what it is, and we're not all clawing after the same, whatever. I was able to get that out of my head, but there's still kind of that inkling that, there are different levels, and there's my heroes, but then me, and there's a reason that they're my heroes, and
they're going to figure it out. Somebody's going to figure it out one day that I'm a fraud, that I'm a fake.
Exactly. It's just a matter of time before people realize, oh, he's not really that good. And then it's over for me. I'm fucked. But, yeah, I mean, we all have that. And, I think as I get older, it in some ways gets worse because the more you learn about, something, and in my case, the craft of, doing this stuff, the more I realize my own shortcomings, and I realize how much I don't know, and then that makes me feel even worse. And
do you think
at a time where I'm the best I've ever been, I should be the most confident I've ever been, and for some reason I'm just eaten up with insecurity over it all. And,
do you think writers feel as much of that as artists? Because I feel like a guy like Rick Remender doesn't have that. That in him,
writers don't have souls. So, they don't feel the pain that humans feel.
Yeah, but Rick was an anchor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, Rick just seems like, at least now. I mean, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but the last time I had dinner with him, and he just felt, he just seemed supremely confident. He was in a place where he had gotten a lot of things done, and it just felt like he was very confident in his abilities at that point, and not in a bad way.
Rightfully so, rightfully so.
Yeah, for sure.
At that point, yeah, it produced a lot of good work. I love his story of his first pitch. I think it was at Marvel, and I don't know who he was in there with, but it was on a book that he had worked with this creator on a book.
Oh,
and he was an anchor.
Kieran on Avengers.
Well, okay, it was Kieran.
Yeah.
And the editor is just like, looked at him and was like, why is your inker here?
Yeah. Or like Rick was pitching him like story ideas or something, and he was like, is your inker pitching me story ideas? And it's like,
Yeah.
like I hope that most editors at this point have grown out of that shit.
Well, I mean, we all know it. There was and it's every industry is like, I see it in corporate America. In comics, there was a time where the editors were all out of college and in their early 20s, and they're calling shots on books. And, you know, it's like John Byrne could have walked in their office and they'd be like, who is this old guy? You know?
Right. But it was a refreshing shakeup because it was the, you know, there was that old paradigm where it was like, oh, you're an inker, that means you are an inker until you're dead. So
Sure.
don't even pretend like you're going to be writing stuff. But like, kind of that newer wave was more open to ideas. They didn't really care where they came from as long as they were good. And so, you know, and then you had guys like Andy Parks, who, you know, is an amazing inker and also an awesome writer and really can pencil most of us under the table also. Just kind of, you know, kindly.
We're gonna be talking to Andy later this week. He's got a Netflix movie coming out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited as shit.
Yeah.
Andy definitely seems like a guy that, going back to that confidence thing where penciling, it seems like that's what's the only thing holding him back is the confidence in his penciling. You know what I mean?
And, you know, it's not that he can't, you know, I mean, so many guys, I mean, you know, Remender was always the same way too. Like he, you know, he never wanted to pencil his own stuff because he felt like he just wasn't up to, you know, par with, you know, his peers or whatever. I'm like, dude, you're every bit as good as the guys that you spend your time inking. Like, just fucking do it. But yeah.
Do you think with Andy and all three of us love him like a brother? Do you think that
he's all right?
He's all right. Do you think him being so peanut butter and jelly as an art team with Phil at some point became like a tripwire for him because they became so synonymous, you know? And they're both so fucking talented, but it was Hester and Parks, and I mean they were
no. Like it might have become a pigeonhole like for other people. They're like, oh, like like I don't want jelly without peanut butter. What the fuck?
But people that knew should have known how good they both were independently of each other, right?
Right, exactly. And I don't know from Andy's mindset if he thought like, you know, if he thought maybe he just, you know, didn't have what it took to fly solo. But I mean, all of us know that he totally did.
It's like, well, in the last few years, I've gotten into jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai kickboxing, and I hang around with a lot of really tough guys, fighters, and there's, you know, it's the difference between a guy that is a killer in the gym, but he can't do it in a ring. He can't do it in front of a crowd, in front of an audience. It's like there's that pressure, you know, while he might murder everybody in the gym, you put him in front of an audience and he just can't get it done. And I think, you know, it's like anything else that stuff seeps in, that pressure of like somebody's watching. If nobody's watching, I can do it and I'm great. But if somebody's watching, it changes everything. And that's the difference between like the really successful great ones and the guys that just can't, for whatever reason, get out from underneath that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you're watching Jeopardy and you see somebody just like eat shit. You're like,
that would be me.
And you're like, well, they had to pass the fucking test. Like they're clearly a smart person. They wouldn't be on Jeopardy. And then maybe like as soon as the cameras turn on, they just fucking joke.
Yeah. I have trivia.
The answer is Martha Washington.
You know, as soon as they're sitting in their car, and I'll flood back to them like, God damn it. But
I have that all the time. Like,
I get.
my nieces and nephews invite me to like comic book trivia, and I freeze, and it's like I can't remember anything. I've stopped going because I suck so bad.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, that's a whole other skill set too, because I mean, you might have like like the Metropolitan Library up here, but if you can't like summon it,
right,
yeah, that's a whole other set of skills.
I fumble with the Dewey Decimal System of my own brain. I can't
exactly.
quite get
My card catalog.
There was a Deadpool question on Jeopardy today. I will mention that, and I did get it. So,
are you reading any comics, Tony?
Ken Jennings. I haven't been reading much. I just picked up that was it Strange Worlds, the Adam Strange book that.
Oh yeah, Tom King.
Yeah. I just picked up the first issue of that, and I still haven't read it.
I slept on a floor of an Airbnb with Tom King one year.
Factoid.
That's how weird this. That's how weird this industry is.
I think about like the early days of San Diego, and like those suites at the DoubleTree were so fucking expensive. But if you got like 10 dudes in on it, it wasn't so bad. And so it was like a fucking clown car. You had dudes sleep, like you had a guy sleeping on the coffee table, and you had a guy sleeping under the coffee table. You had like every horizontal surface had a sleeping body on it. And if you wanted a hot shower, you had to wake up at like 5 a.m. to get there.
There are definitely men in this industry that I have slept in a bed with that I will never, ever admit to doing that.
There were many conventions that Sal would say the words, "I'm too old to do this shit."
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough, man. It's rough. But,
so what do you, I mean...
I just got a horrible notification.
No. I don't want to talk about it. I already know. I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
I know nothing. I'm ignorant.
Yeah. I'm fighting back tears right now. So
yeah, that's rough.
Don't tell me it's. Oh Jesus! Well,
so
somebody tell me! God damn it!
So John Prine just passed away.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So let it be known from here on out, if I'm in a public restroom and one of you fucking animals walks out without washing your hands, I will chase you to the parking lot and I will cut your fucking hands off. It's rough.
Yeah.
Fucking rough.
Yeah, that's why my wife ducked in a little while ago and she said John Prine just passed away, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try and hold it together because he is a huge part of like all of my life from before I could even remember. So
yeah. That's so.
In Chicago, I lived exactly 200 yards from the Old Town School of Folk Music.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah. So where Steve Goodman and John Prine and many others kind of built the American folk and folk rock movement. And
was Christopherson and all that? I know he was like part of their.
Christopherson was more of a Texas guy. It was really Goodman and John Prine were the Chicago folk singers, and that was the kind of Chicago Milwaukee. And you guys, I'm going to grab a record that my parents would play. My parents would play records all the time with me growing up. And there were two records that were like burned into my brain as always singing them out. And one of them was Little Feet Sailing Shoes, which I was like, what the fuck is that? It's like a 6-year-old. And this is the other one.
Well, I'm going to, I just happened to come across a tweet by Pitchfork. And it's a quote by John Prine. And it says, I guess I just process death differently than some folks. Realizing you're not going to see that person again is always the most difficult part about it. But that feeling settles, and then you are glad you had that person in your life. So I think that's pretty apropos, and hopefully,
Every home. If you don't own
this record cover is how I want to live my life. That's John Prine's Sweet Revenge. That is. I wish I was that fucking awesome just one fucking day of my life, and I wish I had the accomplishment of writing one John Prine song, because nothing I can ever do will be as good as any John Prine song that has ever been written.
Yeah, those are noble goals.
Yeah.
I think, stay home if you don't own the first John Prine record. It's practically a greatest hits album of its own. Everybody should own that record.
Yeah, it's I mean, they're all fucking. I mean, look at this fucking dude. I mean, he's just like, I own it, and he's, oh God, and he's writing songs that are just gonna fucking rip your goddamn heart off. And the thing is, he did it in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and he puts out a record last year that I send to my.
I missed a step still. I mean,
I sent that record to my parents down in Florida, who I guarantee you are going to have the worst day of COVID-19 isolation tomorrow, because one of their generation's troubadours is gone. So yeah, it sucks. I will have private moments later. I mean, goddamn, I'm going to go downstairs and put a John Prine record song, or John Prine record on. Who was that? The fucking Everclear. Everclear was singing about fucking John Prine, in the 90s, and that's a California punk band talking about this, Chicago, folk singer from the 70s. The world is not a better place right now.
No, we've definitely experienced a pretty huge human loss at this point.
Well, it is. I don't know. I don't know how to look at any of this. Honestly, it's. I mean, we are getting to an age where, we're going to just deal with more of these type of iconic heroes passing away. But this right now in this situation, dealing with this is. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to manage, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's definitely like over the years, like especially like when with Fear Agent coming along and stuff. I wanted to try to meet as many of my heroes as I could.
I was just going to ask.
And I had, I talked to Jack Davis a few times on the phone. I'd never gotten to meet him in person. We had actually gone down to Georgia at one point, and we were going to meet him, and we, like ships in the night, I reached out, and because I called him ahead of time, a couple of weeks ahead of time, and tried to make sure it was going to be a time frame when he would be around, and I guess it just, wasn't on the docket, and when we got down there, he said, "Oh, I'm getting ready to leave for Athens like tomorrow for a Bulldogs football game, so I'm not going to be around." And so at that point, and then when he passed away, like that cemented, like from here on out, like if I have the opportunity to tell one of my heroes face to face what they've meant to me, I'm going to do it. And so, yeah, if anytime I have an opportunity and I'm at a show, where somebody whose work, has meant a lot to me through my life, I will, carve out the time and make the effort to, have a conversation with that person and tell them what it meant to me. And I don't want to, I feel like a lot of people don't get celebrated until they're dead. And so I made an effort to, if somebody is important to me, I try to, proselytize for them. I try to get out and tell everybody what they mean to me now while they're still alive.
Tony Moore, you mean so much to me.
Well, I was going to say, I got to say, Tony, Chris and I literally, before Around Comics existed, the night, we came up with the idea of Around Comics, we met you at Wizard World. And
oh shit, that happened. Yeah.
That was the night that we
did that interview in the bathroom.
Yeah. And
oh my god, that's the bathroom sketch. Oh shit.
That's
Do I
the
have
night.
that sketch around here?
I have it.
I remember
You and Hester were in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember there was a couch in the bathroom for some reason, and we were all in there doing a podcast on this bathroom couch, which now sounds fucking horrific.
But we weren't even doing a podcast. We weren't recording anything. We were just talking. We were just drunk.
And Hector walks in, and he is using the urinal hands free, and he's drawing it. He's got a piece of paper pinned on the wall, and he's doing a sketch.
I'll go get it.
For Sal. While he's on the pisser.
Somewhere.
Was it you? Were you the
It was Sal.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I've got a first edition Walking Dead trade that has an amazing Tony Moore zombie sketch from that bathroom that says, "Don't ever show this to me when I'm sober," is the word balloon. It is one of my prized possessions.
I don't know where it's at. It's somewhere in my art stuff. I have it. But no, seriously, I do want to say, because of what you said, it's just man, to have gone from that moment to this moment and have watched your career go from a guy, doing a black and white comic at Image that, it's an amazing thing. And there's so many guys over the years that we've watched do that same thing. And Chris and I always said the same thing. It was like we went to a baseball game and then we hung out with all of our favorite players. And that's what we've gotten from this, it's why we're still doing this all these years later. And to know a guy like you and to watch your career just take off and be able to appreciate the fact that your talent has taken you to places probably beyond your own imagination, hopefully beyond your own imagination.
For sure.
Is just a great joy for us. You know what I mean? And
yeah. Shit. When we were talking to Fraction when he was doing 5/5 of Science.
Yeah.
It's and Jason. We were talking to Jason Aaron whenever the Vietnam book. What was the Vietnam book?
The Other Side.
Yeah.
the other
side. With him and Cam Stewart. And
I think about the first time I met him at the comic shop in Kansas City. He was standing there. He was pushing his son around in a stroller. His kid was still a baby in diapers, and the retailer out there, William Bendrup, introduced us, and he had a pitch in at Marvel at Vertigo for The Other Side, and he was hoping it was going to go well, and to see that go from that to now, having run the fucking show at Marvel for years, it's awesome, man. It's awesome.
Well, and for us, it became, we love talking with you guys. It was the up and comers, and quite honestly, we were starting the show and we were trying to get people on to talk. And it was, let's talk to, there's this this nightly news book coming out by this Hickman dude. Let's, I'll get his email. We'll get him on. And so, we talked to this John Hickman guy about nightly news, and Jason Aaron and Cam Stewart about this other side. And so we were, at that point, I mean, this is 2006, and we're talking to all of these, indie creators that are coming up and really trying to pitch their work and move the needle at all. I remember talking to Cullen Bunn and Brian Hurt about The Damned. And Cullen very honestly said, if we're writing the X-Men or writing and drawing the X-Men and you sell an extra like 600 copies of the X-Men, big fucking deal. But if you sell an extra 600 copies of The Damned, that's kind of a big deal to us. And so, I mean, it kind of clicked for us that, talking to those guys, it's like, they're going to have good, honest conversations with us. But at the same time, we wanted to talk to John Byrne and Carmine Infantino and Gene Colan, because they were our heroes. And so it's this double-edged, amazing sword that we're able to talk to these amazing young creators that were coming up selling their wares. But I think for posterity's sake, we were able to get interviews with people that won't be around forever. I look at those Gene Colan, interviews and Carmine, listening to fucking Carmine and Tom. Mm-hmm. That could have been a show all of its own. Carmine Infantino and Tom Caters together, just talking about the Flash. So it's always gone both ways, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think the more you interact with these guys that that are your heroes, like, we have this tendency to lionize our heroes and think of them as that they lead some, vastly different life than us, and that they're, cut from some different cloth or whatever. And then you start to talk to them and you realize, like, oh, you're just a dude. Like, you're like the same kind of dude as me and like all the dudes I run into at the store or whatever. Like,
one of the best,
because those guys, like, sure, they may have created your favorite fucking comics ever, but they still got to go to the grocery store and they still whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they lead human lives, and then like once you realize, like, they're just people, like it makes it feel more approachable, but then it makes you really appreciate what they've done also. So, like, holy shit, like, you're just like me, but you did that. Yeah. Like, you did that thing. And
who have you fucking Farley'd out on in your who is your Farley moment?
Well, like, I've really tried to, like, keep it cool, and I don't know how well I've ever done it. But, like, I mean, shit, like, the first time I called Jack Davis on the phone, I paced in front of the phone for like a half hour in a fucking flop sweat, like, trying to figure out what I would even say to this guy. And then I'm trying to think, like, I mean, when I met Jeff Darrow for the first time and, like, talked to him, like, I'd seen him at shows and whatever, but I never.
And that's hilarious. Yeah.
Talked to him.
He's an intimidating guy. Like, he's
one mountain. And then on top of that, like, like, his work is so amazing, but like, he's the sweetest. Like he wants to talk to everybody that comes up, and like, he's super cool. But so, like
at Windy City Con, we put Chris Burnham next to Darrow, and I don't think that Burnham will ever fucking forgive us for that. He's like, you cannot put me next to him at this show because I'm not going to be able to talk to him all weekend.
I don't think that went real well either.
That's awesome.
Got my Wilfred Home Appliances logo.
Beautiful.
That's amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Darrow couldn't be a nicer guy in the world.
Yeah, and like, who was I with? Alberto Ruiz was publishing these art books, and he was like, "Do you want to meet Jeff? Like, you can go over and talk to him. I'll introduce you." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And went over, and Alberto's, just chatting him up because they're friends or whatever. And like, I'm pacing around in the background like a fucking psychopath because I don't know what I have to offer to this conversation. Like, I don't know what to say to this guy. And then he's like, "Hey, Tony, come over here." And like, I like a deer in the headlights. I didn't know what the fuck. And then I went over and I started talking to him, and I was like, I don't know what I built this up in my head as, and yeah, totally sweetheart guy, and but like it was that thing, like, and at that point I realized, like, that thing, if he's your hero, go talk to him, like, just fucking nut up and go do it, like, because like, if you miss that chance, regret is a fucking killer. Like, it just like festers in your stomach like a worm, and just and it's so I don't ever want to feel that again if I can avoid it. And so, like, I forget where we were.
Farley moment.
Well, I don't think I really like. I mean, I guess I probably have at some point, but I usually just clam up and don't talk. I don't like.
Mine was Bruce Timm, and it was bad. It was like someone had to be like, "Chris, we're gonna go over here now." I was like, "Remember that time when you did like Batman the Animated Series? It was pretty awesome, right?"
Oh, it's awesome. We were in the Denver con in the hotel, and was walking through the lobby, and I was like, "Holy fuck, that's Frank Miller right there!" And
oh yeah.
I'm gonna go talk to him. And he had like a security guard kind of like running interference, and I just like breezed past him before he could even like, "Excuse me," and I just like and just like walked right past him, and I was like, "Look, I know you get hammered all the time by guys. And I introduced myself, and I said, I just want to tell you, you are probably 90% of the reason I wanted to draw comics, and thank you so much." And I didn't, I was like, I'm not gonna like monopolize your time or whatever, but I just want to tell you how much work my life. So thank you. And like, just that, like, I don't know. Hopefully, I didn't come across like too much of a psycho or whatever, but I also didn't want to like eat up his afternoon, like, trying to talk to some guy that he doesn't know or whatever. But
one day someone is going to do that to you, and it's going to freak you out.
Yeah.
The most terrified I was, well, there was when we talked to Byrne, that was terrifying. But that was over the...
You fucking freaked out.
Yeah.
Like, a half hour before we did that show, you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I was like, don't you fucking freak out on me now.
Well, he was a hero. I mean, he was legitimately...
Too. Like, I guess that would make you nervous, right?
Oh, I was terrified.
Horror stories, and you're like, oh, fuck, I don't want to be one of those.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's how it was when I first met Neil Adams. I was like, man,
yeah.
Everybody I know a horror story about Neil Adams, and I was like, I should probably just talk to him anyway.
Here's the thing too: is
he's never been anything but super sweet to me.
Here's the thing, Chris, about Byrne that you don't understand is that there was a part of me that was, oh my god, please don't be an asshole, because I didn't want to be in that situation, but it was also because I don't respond well to that, and the last thing I wanted to have happen was me to tell John Byrne to go fuck himself. Because that would have happened if he was an asshole.
You were worried about yourself.
Yes.
You were worried about being a dick.
Yes.
I see.
Absolutely. Yes.
But the great thing about that is that Byrne diffused it. I mean, Byrne diffused it right off the bat. We were like, hey, welcome to the show. How are you doing? He's like, oh, okay, I'm a little full. I just got done eating some babies. I think was his opening line.
He couldn't have been better. But in person, the worst was Chankin. Because Chankin was another hero. American Flag was the greatest thing I have ever read. And, as a teenager, it was, transformed my idea of what a comic book was. And I went to a con and he was there, and I went to the table, and I literally paced, like you said, like in a flop sweat. Do I want to talk to him? Because I had heard horror stories. Chankin can be cantankerous and he can be difficult. And I was like, I love this man. I love his work so much. I don't want to have a bad experience. And it was the greatest, he was so great. And he knew that I was nervous and he knew that I was terrified. And we talked about like Mad Men and television shows, and like for an hour we just sat there and talked, and it was fantastic. It was amazing. He made it so great, and it was one of those special moments. But like you said, go talk to your heroes.
Yeah, I think guys like him and like Neil Adams and these guys, like they know what if someone's coming up to them, they know what it means to them. But at the same time, they don't suffer fools gladly.
No,
and so if somebody comes up and says dumb shit, you're going to get told that it's dumb shit.
Yeah.
And then that's going to turn into a really bad interaction really fast.
Yeah.
And then it'll become one of those internet horrors. But they are genuinely sweet guys.
Yeah.
Like, Lincoln's never been anything but super sweet. He's told some of the raunchiest stories I've ever heard in my life, but he is like a sweet guy, but he's direct, and he's I could definitely see him like decimating somebody that
like you said,
like wandered in.
You said it perfectly. They do not suffer fools, and as long as you are not an idiot, you're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Just don't be an idiot. Just be. But it is a weird thing. It is a difficult thing to meet someone whose work you idolize. Like you especially like when you're a kid, when you're young and a teenager in those formative years of like this stuff means so much to you. I mean, it means more than, it means as much as your first kiss. It means as much as, your first love. Like, that's how deeply it is ingrained in you. And then all of a sudden that person is in front of you. How do you deal with that? How do you, it's hard. It's a tough thing.
Do you get that? Do you get young creators, and I'm talking, beginning college to maybe grade school, do you get aspiring artists that come up to you and say, man, your stuff really means something to me? Or do you get people that are like, come up and say, I just want you to show me how to draw a really cool zombie?
I get plenty of both. Yeah, it's surreal to me to meet like a young creator who, when they'll tell me something like, oh, like The Walking Dead, like, is what got me into comics, and I'll be like, I'm so sorry. But they'll say like, oh man, I was reading that. I remember I bought issue 1 when it came out when I was in middle school. I'm like, oh no.
Did you did you slab it? Did you preserve it and slab it and get a 9.5 on that bastard and pay for like a mortgage payment?
But yeah, when they say like, oh, I read this when I was in middle school, I'm like, oh no, see, like you've confused me with like an older, like I'm a modern comics artist. Like this is like you're a grown man, so there's no way you could have read that in middle school because I am not an old man. And that's upsetting. It's like the meanest thing somebody do is come up and
so Tony, you remember the story that we were talking about you doing the sketch in the bathroom.
I'm a young gun,
Hyatt.
goddammit. I'm a fucking young gun still.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm not old.
So the story about you doing that sketch in the Hyatt, for us, I have bad news. That was almost 15 years ago.
Fuck you.
Why the fuck would you say that to me, man? Like, tonight of all fucking nights.
That was almost
I thought
15 years ago.
Jesus.
I had hair. I had hair.
My daughter is going to college in the fall. I have a college student in the fall.
Does that happen to him? To do that? Oh man.
It's crazy. We're, it is that weird thing of like, I don't feel much older than I was, 20 years ago.
A kid in your life will do that to you, like, so bad, though. Like, it gives you, like, a real-time barometer of how old you're fucking getting and, like, how quickly all the time that you thought you had is, like, slipping through your fingers, like, every fucking day.
Well,
And, like, I was 10 now, and I was like, oh, like, it feels like yesterday that I was bringing you home from the hospital, like, the first time, and now you're, like, fucking 5 feet tall and, like, outgrowing all your clothes and your shoes
I remember
are the same
that.
size as your mom's.
Yeah.
I'm like,
all right.
what the fuck?
Hold on. Here we go. My son is 14. He's taller than me by maybe 2 inches. He's got bigger hands than me, and he kicked my ass in basketball today. And it was tough. It was not easy to deal with.
Yeah, man, it's rough. It's rough.
Yeah, it was.
It's like watching one of those fucking like nature documentaries where the old lion gets eaten or whatever.
We're all silverbacks at some point, man. I own a house in Milwaukee now. What has happened to me?
Yeah, dude, I get it.
So, Tony, let me ask you this. I don't. What was the last thing you did for one of the big two? Was it Punisher? Was that?
The last covers I drew were for the War of the Realms lead-in for Punisher Kill Crew.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think that was the last covers I did. The last interiors I did was a standalone issue of Thor. It was like one of the young Thor, like, I don't know if it was a flashback or what. It was part of Jason.
Was that with Jason? Was that with Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself doing any more Big Two stuff, or is that just something that at this point you've played in that sandbox, you've kind of, fulfilled that, scratched that itch, if you will?
Like, still like doing it. It's got to be like the right thing, because it's hard. I mean, it's really fucking hard to draw the insides of a book, and like the older I've gotten, and like I've been out of that swing for a while, so I'm not as like slick with it as I used to be, and so like even that standalone of Thor was like it required an easy 40% extra effort just to like get myself back like in the right mindset to do that, but like I don't know. Like I remember when I did Deadpool, like I busted my ass on that book because I had a reputation of fucking up. Like I knew it, and because I had. Like, I'm not gonna pretend I hadn't fucked up plenty of stuff, But they kept asking me to do stuff because I guess they thought the work was good, or that my name being associated with Walking Dead, was worth enough to keep asking me.
The work was good.
Either way it shakes out, they did keep asking. But so like with Deadpool, I was like, like I'm not gonna fuck around. Like I'm gonna come in, I'm just gonna do this. Like hell or high water, I'm gonna do it. Show them I can do it. show me I can do it, because my whole career I'd either juggled stuff and not been able to keep up the pace and fucked up two things that I was trying to juggle or whatever. Some reason or another, I'd always basically kind of fucked up almost every project I'd been working on, and I wanted to show I can do this, and so I did, and I remember I drew that first issue, and they were like, "Okay, cool. So what we're gonna do now? We're gonna start doing some double shipments twice a year. So even though we're gonna try to put out 18 issues a year instead of 12."
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
Good luck. I mean, I can't be that guy. I was the fastest dude I know can't do that. And they were like, "Oh, who might that be?" It's well,
Yeah.
it's Mike.
Fucking Mike Norton. I remember Mike was doing 2.5 fucking issues a month, and that's before he got to a point of fuck this.
Yeah, well, Mike Hawthorne is the guy that I would recommend for it, because he's the only guy I know who's ever called editors and chewed them out because they didn't have script for him to draw.
Mike Hawthorne is a fucking animal.
He's a beast, and he's drawn that fucking book for forever. I mean, he drew it for something 6 years or something ridiculous. I don't think any modern comics artist has that long a run under their belt. But yeah, I busted my ass on that thing, and then when it was over, they were like, "So, do you want to do it again?" I was like, "Fuck no, that was awful." And it kicked my ass, and so now I realize the amount of time I've got left on this earth is finite. I've said it before. It's like a bank account that you can't make deposits to, and you can't even check your fucking balance. It's just this unknown whatever, and when you run out, you run out, and that's it. And so it's made me a lot more judicious about what I'm doing with my time and effort, and I started thinking okay, if they back up a truckload of money or whatever, then yeah, I can justify it, but it's it's got to be I can't accept less than what I feel like I need, because when I start breaking down that page rate into hours, I'm like, man, I could be making more money flipping burgers. This is rough.
Let me ask you,
it changed the whole thing, and I'm like, if I'm gonna gamble like that, I'm gonna break my back and invest in something, then I'm gonna be doing that for me. I'm gonna be building my shit. So that's just kind of where I am.
How did you, I don't know if we've ever asked this question before, but how did you get into comics? Were you, I know you were a comic book fan, but did you want to draw comics? Did you want to, or did you just want to draw? Because it always seemed to me you wanted to draw, but it was almost begrudgingly interiors. Interior work, was you had to do it, but you didn't enjoy doing it necessarily. There's guys that, Hawthorne or guys like that are monsters that are just they will pump out those pages. Yeah. And you were a guy that wanted to spend hours of detail on one thing, beautifully so.
I don't want to walk away from something until I've just shaken it to death. And
it's like that Childers Ryman poster.
Yeah, or basically any of the stuff I've done with him, fortunately. But yeah, it's been I'm a sprint runner. I'm not a marathon runner. As far as comics goes, if I've got a limited engagement, I'll give it that. But if I'm staring down the barrel of an indefinite monthly run, I'm not cut out for it, and I know that it's a matter of time and not that much time before it starts getting tripped up, and I can't keep that up. So yeah, I just recognize, like, I'm at
That's
peace
going to be
with-
tough too.
you know.
I mean, because
But
the industry is not forgiving to that. I mean, that's
No, it's not.
you're like
mean,
a square peg.
It is to some people, and I look at, I mean, you've already made your stand. Okay. You've done more than most comic book creators.
You're Tony
will
fucking
ever
Moore.
aspire. Okay. But I look at someone like Darwin Cook. Do you have a new frontier that you want to make? Is that something that you're like, there's a project at some point in my future that I want to say, this is my magnum opus? I mean, is that something you want to do, or are you just will you just kind of take it as it comes? Because I think Darwin
maybe a bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I definitely, like, I don't know what that book would be. And, like, I don't know that as a creator, my skill set is developed enough in all the areas to, produce the thing that I would say is my magnum opus. But, like, I have, things that are kind of, churning to, help me get to that point.
The other part of that is you're an artist. You're an amazing artist. You're an amazing sequential artist. Do you have, and there's no right or wrong answer here, any inclination to write? Or is that something that you're like,
Yeah. I mean, like the word cartoonist is kind of like a dirty word for a lot of people.
No, it's not. Not to me. It's not.
No, not reasonable people. But for a lot, like, I've found a lot of illustrators feel slighted if they're, if someone calls them a cartoonist. And I think, like, like, Will Eisner
It's a compliment.
was a cartoon. Yeah, Will Eisner was a cartoon, and he was proud of it. Like, I guarantee you're not fucking anything better than Will Eisner. So, like, you don't get to pretend you're above being called a cartoonist. Like, I don't self-apply it because I don't feel like I've earned it. Because a cartoonist does the whole fucking thing, like soup to nuts, and I have not earned that. But it's a goal, and it's, something I'm actively working toward, yes. So.
Do you find that, there's a pressure that comes with a certain amount of notoriety, a certain amount of fame? I mean, you have a level of fame in the comic book industry that not a lot of guys do. There's only actively, a handful of guys that have the level of notoriety, the name recognition. Do you feel that comes also with a certain amount of pressure to produce something? What is the next thing Tony Moore is doing? What is is that something that you think about? Is that something that weighs on you at all?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, I know, like, I'm under no delusions that there's a 99% chance that the most famous work I've ever done is something I drew fucking almost 20 years ago. And it's not an
Fear Agent's going to be huge.
I hope. I do. I do hope so. But even that's 15 years ago. I mean, it ended 10 years ago. But, but yeah, like, it's a weird thing. Like I do know that, like, skill wise, I've never been better, and I'm only gonna get better. The older I get, the more I learn. But, like, the chances of me catching lightning in a bottle the way I did back then, probably pretty slim. So I may live the rest of my life in the shadow of that project. and it's not an awesome feeling, but I'm at peace with it because I can't change it.
Shit
So,
is.
But at the
I
but at
mean-
the same time, at conventions, people walk by you wearing like Rick outfits, and they don't know who the fuck you are. So it's all good, right?
yeah, right. That's good.
I mean, that's got to be I mean, that's a mind fuck of a thing because you've accomplished something that so many people wish they could have accomplished, and yet it's left you. You know, I mean, and I understand what you're talking about. I see what you're saying. Like, you know, you did this when you were young, and you're better now than you've ever been.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that? How do you sort of like, you know?
I mean, I mean, all you can do is just one foot in front of the other and just
Yeah.
keep going. I mean, that's all. It's really the only option. And so, like, you know, when I make an effort, you know, like when my first book as a writer comes out, like I know I'm going to be judged against all of the other writers I worked with. And so, like, yeah, do I think, like, under any circumstances that my freshman effort is going to hit the ground running as good as fucking Jason Aaron? Like, no. I know it's
He's a hack.
but, you know, all I can do is just do what, you know, feels good and, you know, hope for the best. And then hope that I, you know, my entire voice, you know, as a writer and artist or whatever, as it all starts to coalesce and I put this, you know, this whole whatever whole project is that is like my, you know, whatever it is. I don't even know what it's going to end up being.
Well, the problem is that nobody appreciates how fucking hard it is to hit that fucking lightning once. But then to continue to produce, and learn and grow and evolve and try and do it again. Like the people that are gonna comment on it, you know, the fucking Twitter, you know, community that's gonna comment on it, have no idea what it is to do it once, let alone to try and do it again.
Like I've had enough time to kind of like settle into what that life is, you know, like coming off of Walking Dead and then going to Exterminators that got canceled and Fear Agent that like
But it was awesome.
Hovered on the precipice of cancellation like its whole life. You know, like I know, you know, it's not like I don't know. I guess maybe some guys are just hit machines. Like, you know, every time you step up to the bat, you just crank out another, you know, just printing money.
It happens, and it's amazing.
But you know, I mean, I'm clearly not that.
Well,
you know, I have to get used to that idea. Okay.
Here's something that I watched this year or this last week. You know, it's isolation. All the time is mushing together that has affected me deeply, and I think it pertains to this. Have you guys seen on Hulu Too Funny to Fail, the life and death of the Dana Carvey show?
I started watching it, yes.
Do yourselves a favor, watch this documentary. It is fucking amazing. The history of the Dana Carvey show, you've got Dana Carvey, who is maybe the biggest name in American comedy at the time. He's just coming. He's left SNL as the longest running cast member. He's got a list of characters on there a mile wide. Wayne's World has just dominated the movie box office, and he leaves there and he wants to create a sketch show for primetime TV in the vein of Monty Python, and he can sell this idea to any network, including cable at the time that he wants to, and they make the ill-fated decision to go to ABC, like 6 months before fucking Disney buys them, right? And it is the meteoric rise and then fall of this show as he gets together a group of writers that no one has ever heard of. I'm trying to think of some of the guys. Louis C.K., Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell. It's this amazing. I mean, like literally the greatest writing room ever in the history of TV is put together, and just because of the time and place that they were put, this show fails miserably. And that's a long way of getting me to say, first of all, watch that documentary because it's fucking awesome. And second of all, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, which was, we came in 2006, 2007 to this amazing group of creators that I kind of, as we're talking about this, look at the 1970s SNL cast of creators as like this amazing group that would kind of overtake comedy for the next decade.
Are you saying that Tony is the John Belushi of comics? Is that?
No, I don't think that Tony at this point is gonna die in a car wreck with a bottle of Jack Daniels in between his legs. But here's the point I'm getting to. At what point in your okay, that's a good bottle of bourbon, just don't go driving. At what point in your career do you make that shift between I'm trying to climb the ladder to I've made a peak, and now it's time for me to maybe.
Why are you asking this question? Listen, this guy has fucking done more. You're making it sound like Tony is on this fucking like cliff.
I'm not saying
career is fucking over. What the fuck? This dude has done more. Really, I would give my left nut. Really I would cut off my left ball to do what this guy has done in comics, and you're making it sound like, your fucking career is over, Tony Moore. Like, what's it like to be on the twilight of your fucking...
Because let me speak. Let me. So Dana Carvey's top of the world, and he finds these young, amazing sketch comedy actors and writers, and he puts this amazing show together. It doesn't succeed, but it goes on to spawn like comedy as we know it for the next couple decades. And I mean, it's a self-awareness of, I guess that's the question. Are you on the lookout for people to collaborate with as that next wave of amazing creators? That's where I was going. That's the long-winded way to say, you look for
what
new,
the fuck are you talking about,
voices to do that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was easier to do like when we were running the convention up in Cincinnati. Like when we could fill out an artist alley, and like I was walking around and meeting more people, and especially like just when I was more on the convention scene in general. It was easier to like see guys that were on the come up and like sit and talk to them and see their work and like really get a sense of this guy's about to be like huge. Now I'm a lot more removed from the entire scene, like not just the convention, but like the entire comic scene. I mean, most of the stuff I'm reading is either like Japanese horror stuff that I'm downloading off the internet, or like reprints from the 50s, or like I'm not really keeping up a whole lot with like the modern comic scene, and I'm kind of a bad nerd for that. But like, I mean, honestly, I've only got so many hours in the day. Like, I don't watch hardly any of the shows that I put in my Netflix queue. Um, I continually buy books as like, well, I'll read you one day, or like there's some, this magical thing of like, if I buy it and I put it on my shelf, then like the knowledge in it will somehow like float into my
Through
mind
osmosis.
or some shit.
It does. That happens.
I mean, of course, that's why I keep doing it. I'm not an idiot. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, let me counter
Yeah.
Chris's fucking magnum opus of question that he laid out to you. And
It's a really good documentary. You have to watch it. It's amazing.
I'm on the other side of it where I'm like, listen, you have nothing. You should feel nothing but pride for your career, and you won.
You don't have anything left to prove.
You know what I mean? Like, you won, and at this point, it's all gravy. Do what the fuck you want to do, and I think that's what you're doing. Is
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Like, one, like being aware of like what I'm capable of in the comics industry, and like how my own abilities limit how much I can do. Just recognizing my shortcomings is like just how prolific I can be as an artist. Like I can only do so much, and it's not really that much. And recognizing that.
but that's okay, because what you do,
cards that
people
I'm dealt.
love
Like, I
so
know
much.
what cards are. Right?
Yeah.
Like Hester said one time, like, like every good thief has a plan to break in, or every thief has a plan to break in, but only the good ones have a plan to break out. And I'm like, yeah, that's it, man. Like everybody's asking how to break into comics, and nobody's asking how to break out.
For you, one of my favorite all-time sayings is very Tony Moore-esque. Don't confuse activity with accomplishment.
There you go.
And you have accomplished more with what you've done than people that have chased their tail in this industry for 2 or 3 decades. So don't confuse activity and accomplishment.
What's your favorite bourbon right now?
Yeah, there we go. Now the good questions.
Yeah. I think probably Booker's. This is like I like that one a whole lot. Trying to think what else I'm really getting after. I haven't really been drinking so much recently, so yeah, I like Booker's a whole lot though.
That's a good
Elijah
one.
Craig is good. It's got a nice kind of heat to it, kind of oaky. Yeah, that's probably it right now. I mean, I don't know. I've got so many I haven't really gotten like busted into yet. So
What's your next tattoo?
well, just unify everything I got. I just had my leg done with. I had Jeff Gogway, who's been doing all of our work on my wife and I. I just had him do the Moore family crest, like his twist on the Moore family crest, which is 3 heads skewered onto a sword.
Of course it is.
He did a pretty killer job at running from the tip of the sword starts at like just above my belt line, and the handle of the hilt of the sword ends, or the pommel of the sword ends just on the top of my foot. And it's like 3 life-size skulls on
How do you?
and it's Narsil.
That doesn't sound painful at all.
Yeah, no, it don't fucking tickle, that's for sure.
Let me ask you a question. I've gotten in the last year, I've gotten more tattoos than I had in the last 10 years, but I want more. But my problem is like trying to figure out how to tie it all together. Like, how do I, I follow you and your wife on Instagram, and I mean, you guys have, it seems like this cohesive
fucking plan.
Yeah, and I'm like, I just get shit. I'm like, oh, I'm in a different city. I'm going to go to some random tattoo shop and get something done. And you guys have like this plan of like getting these sleeves and backs and all this stuff done. It's amazing. And I'm so jealous and I can't figure out what the fuck I want.
I don't know. Like most of the stuff I have is just like a laundry list of elements of things that like mean something to me in my life, and that's what Kara's done too. And so like when we reached out to Jeff, like I just thought like a sleeve would be badass, and he was like, I'm not really doing that. I'm doing like more large scale work. I'm like, sleeve's pretty fucking big. Like, what's that mean? He's like, I don't know. I'm more into like
more than a fucking arm.
Yeah, I'm more into like back pieces, like full backs, full fronts, or like bodysuits. And I was like, all right,
bodysuit,
whatever. Like, I was like, I'll go full back. Like, what? I'm not using it for anything. Like, yeah, let's go. And and. Yeah, like I just kind of like cooked up a fistful of like the elements that mean something to me, and I've still got a list that we're kind of picking through, and I'm adding some new stuff here and there as we go. But
whenever you say elements, are you talking like hydrogen, oxygen? Like,
no, just pieces that get put in. Like my back piece is like on one knee, I've got a deer skull that starts at my knee. And it goes all the way up my thigh, and it takes up my whole thigh. And then the antlers run across and all the way up to my shoulder. And then
just show us. Just take the shirt off. Let's see it.
Here, I'm not doing it here. This is yeah. I'm not gonna.
You have crossed the line, Sal. I've seen pictures.
Kira, I hear Kira. She's there. Show us your back. Let's see it. Come on, just show the back.
Just ask Brian if his phone number is still the same. I'll send it to him.
It is. It's so impressive.
But you can see my full. I mean, it's the standard equipment. It's the same ass that everybody has. But
it's an amazing dedication.
It's been a process, that's for sure. You definitely learn a lot about yourself. Yeah, like physically and mentally.
How many hours have you been in the chair?
I probably got 60 hours on my back, and
Jesus.
I'm probably another 40 on my torso at this point, and then about 8. I'm about 8 in on my leg right now. That's just one leg. I don't have anything on either arm or the one leg now. But yeah, I mean, eventually I'll fill it all out. But I mean, I just found an artist that I trust basically implicitly, and it's weird because like I micromanage every fucking art project that I'm on, but like my actual physical body, I just handed it over. I'm like, yeah, you just do what you feel is right. And
man, I bought a house like 3 years ago. I got
Kara just
like
emailed
18,
me
20 hours in mowing the grass, and that's like fucking enough for me. Like done.
Kira, she just texted me your back piece. Oh my fucking god! Well, I want to say you have kind of a nice ass. I will say
you have a nice ass.
My life, we'd been training for the half marathons we've been running and stuff, so I was still in pretty good shape. I hadn't like fallen completely off the fitness wagon.
I'd like to get you into jiu-jitsu. That's a.
It'd be fun. I missed doing that stuff in high school. I took Shaolin and I loved it.
Well, Sal chokes people out for a living now.
No, it's not a living yet. Eventually, that's my goal, to retire as a person that professionally chokes people unconscious. That is my goal. But for now, no, this is beautiful, unbelievable work. Let me ask you, and people can't see this, but the on your shoulder blades, there's a piece that it kind of reminds me of Swamp Thing. Is that a Swamp Thing inspired?
I I don't know that Jeff did that on purpose, but like I totally loved it because I told him I wanted a Luna moth, and then he was like Luna moths have these little like eye shapes on their wings, and then they have these like tails that come down, and then he put a skull there so that the eyes were on the skull, and then the things came down and it's straight up Swamp Thing. Like
it really is.
I don't think he did it on purpose, but like when I saw it, I flipped out.
That is like serendipitous. I mean, that is very Swamp Thing. That's so fucking cool, man. So cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I flipped out. And that was wild. Like, he drew it that morning. Like, I showed up, and he was like, so I got up early this morning. Here's what I came up with. I was like, holy fuck, yeah. That's me.
Well, that's the key, though. Like, finding a guy you can trust. I mean, especially, I can't imagine, like, a guy like you who is such an accomplished artist to be able to find someone that you can trust.
Yeah.
To trust to put this on you permanently has to be a difficult thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I could count the people I would trust to do that on probably one hand, and maybe still have some fingers left over. But
Rick Remender.
Yeah, sure. I don't know, man. He's sadistic. I've read his scripts. I don't know if I try like punching me with a needle.
All right, so we talked about going back and Marvel, DC, Big Two stuff. Is there a character that you haven't done that you wish you could do? That there's something left on the bucket list, a mainstream character?
Yeah, there's plenty. Like I want to draw a Swamp Thing. Like I've been offered a couple Swamp Thing like small things that would have been awesome that I just like the timing was bad and I just couldn't make it work.
What is it about that character?
I don't know, man. It's awesome. Like,
is it the Alan Moore thing? Is it the Bernie Wrightson? Or not Bernie?
Bissett. It's Bissett. Bissett.
No,
I mean, the Bissett Swamp Thing.
It's all of it, really. I mean, it's that like it's the childhood wish fulfillment. It's like that hero worship stuff. I mean, it's all of it kind of rolled into one. But then on top of that, he's really fucking fun to draw. Because like I don't like drawing clean line like technical shit, but like I love noodling on like monsters and
all
like
the
nature
detail
stuff. And I mean, it's all of it like all put together. It's kind of perfect. Like I want to draw Jonah Hex at some point before I hang it up.
That would be so nice.
When that book was still running, Palmiotti had actually written me a script that was like an evergreen, like, you know, it'd just be like a plug, like an evergreen thing. You just write it when you want. We'll plug it in as a fill-in, and it'll be great.
An annual, maybe an annual.
Yeah.
I think I was still working on Exterminators, or maybe at that point, I think I was working on Ghost Rider already. And like as I was wrapping it up, I wrote him a letter and I was like, "Hey, good news! Like next week, I'm going to be done with Ghost Rider and I'm going to start this Jonah Hex script." And like I want to say like the 2 days before I was finished, the news came out that the series had been canceled, and so like my script was, I was like,
have you ever thought about doing?
It was really good too.
I don't know why, but like I have this weird fantasy of like you doing a Superman book. I don't know why, like because it seems like so.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm cut out for Superman.
I know, but it's
kind of like Frank Quietly doing All-Star, Superman.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't think it would work, and it was just like, this is the greatest Superman ever.
Well, I definitely don't think I could do that. Especially, I don't know. Like, that was a pretty definitive run on Superman.
I just think you
never
bring a
you never would have
humanity.
thought it beforehand.
Yeah,
right?
you might. Yeah, you might be right.
There's a humanity I think you could add to Superman, because Superman is so often drawn in a way where he is difficult to connect with. He's so superior. He's so, I don't know what it is about him. You know what I mean? But I think like you could add, your characters have, your character designs have a humanity to them, something that we can connect to. At least me personally, I feel like I can connect to a guy, that has seen
That you
some
maybe
shit.
didn't
Has
feel
seen
like
some-
you could connect to otherwise, which
Yeah,
works for Superman. Yeah.
I think you could do it. I think that would be kind of cool. I don't know.
I mean, I'd be interested in seeing what that was like. I mean, like I didn't think I would be able to like get down with drawing Spider-Man until I did in Venom. So yeah, maybe I don't know.
Never say never.
Yeah. I mean, I always go for like the monsters and psychopath and like kind of the more the grittier, the more offbeat, like I don't know, whatever's. Like I feel like the most mainstream thing I could maybe be cut out for would be like, like how I was on Deadpool. I think I could maybe bring something to Wolverine that would be fun, or Hulk.
Sure.
But like,
Are you reading the Immortal Hulk? The series.
This is Sal's. It's almost a bit at this fucking point. This is
It's
Sal's
so good.
favorite. It's the only goddamn comic he reads
It's
anymore.
so good,
Is Immortal
Tony.
Hulk.
well, I'll have to check it out.
It's so good.
It's really,
You'll love
really
it.
good. It's really good.
If I think you should contact Marvel right now, because the only thing that would make it better is you drawing a fill-in issue of the Immortal Hulk. It's right up your alley. It's so weird and creepy and monstrous and fucked up. It's so good. You'll absolutely love it.
It's as Swamp Thing as Hulk has ever been.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's right up my
Yeah.
alley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's
would
pretty.
be
It's
awesome.
pretty dope.
I would.
So, all right. Are we going to let this man get back to his family and his isolation?
Absolutely. I mean, honored to have you with us as always.
It's been talking to you. It's been forever.
It has been a while.
I'm just going to throw this out. Tony, here's the little secret about the show now. We don't fucking care. So if you ever just feel like shooting the shit, we'll be around.
Yeah,
so at this point we're just catching up with people that we really like.
Yeah.
And don't like the bullshit with.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks for reaching out, man. I'm super glad we got to do it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, and
sorry it's been under these circumstances, but yeah.
hey, we've got that's part of it is grabbing silver linings where we.
There we go, man. There we go. Making some lemonade.
And
is part of this.
I have to tell
That's
you,
great.
before we go, I will say this. One of my biggest regrets is that you and Kira had invited me to come to, when you guys were doing a convention, because you guys did a convention, of your own there, and you invited me to come down, and I didn't. And I apologize, because it is now like one of my biggest regrets that I didn't do that. That I just didn't, it was not in the cards, but
it happens. I mean, gradually I've been able to cry myself to sleep like a little less.
Well, I miss you guys.
Running a convention ain't easy, is it? I mean, it sucks. It's amazing, but it's rough.
Yeah, we did it for 4 years, and Like, I loved what we did, but yeah, I was ass whipped, and
Yeah.
it just got to
We
the point.
we did it. We did it for two. And were you there for both years of ours for the Windy City?
Were they both in the same place?
Well, yeah, they were both in
I
the same
only went-
hall.
I don't remember which one was the one that I went to.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute labor of love that, you know, at the end of it, you know, we were just like, what an amazing time. We made no fucking money.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, like, I loved what we were doing because we were, like you guys,
Yeah.
we were doing a creator-centric show, and
Mm.
I was really proud of it. And then we were kind of looking at the scenario, and, like, at best, we were holding steady and hoping for for a pickup, but there was this kind of gradual attrition, and they say, like, everything takes 5 years, and I was like, I don't know if I got 5 years of this in me. Like, we got
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah.
If I start dipping into the red, like, I can't start
Well-
pouring my own bank account into this, and
Yeah.
I'm already working for free, and I've got a full-time job, and I don't know.
And not to string things along here, but I mean, we're entering convention season right now, and I'm sorry, but they ain't gonna happen.
No, it's going to be real hard on a lot of folks. I mean,
Yeah.
like, a lot of my
It's gonna
musicians-
kill some of those shows, like maybe permanently. It's gonna put them in the fucking dirt. You know,
I mean,
it's and it's just one bad year does that.
it on the plus side, like, I've kind of thought for a long time. So, like, it's been this kind of bubble, like, we've all been waiting for it to burst. We've seen, the big shows just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I wonder if this is the catalyst that will make those big shows that are kind of overextended, if that's when they've gone out too far on the limb and can't come back. And it'll be
maybe.
small shows that were like the real shows to begin with will be the ones that are able to keep moving because they weren't so overgrown that they couldn't, that they could sustain a little bit of a hit. So I don't know. I'll be interested in seeing how that goes.
Yep.
It's going to
It's gonna be wild.
The whole comic book industry is I mean, the world as we know it is going to be different going forward. But the comic book industry is going to be changed. I don't know what's going to happen moving forward. There's going to be a lot of different components that are going to affect things. But comics will be okay, but how they're going to be distributed, how they're going to be viewed by people, it's going to be a different thing.
Yeah, distribution and publishing, like all the bottlenecks where shit fell apart. I think if the industry doesn't start, like, pinpointing those and be like, okay, like, that was a problem, this is a problem, that's a problem. If they don't identify those things, fucking fix them post haste, then it's just setting themselves up again. And hopefully they're smart enough to not drag their feet on that. I think we've allowed ourselves to be too centralized for a long time. Like I said, like, you put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. We talked about it earlier, and the industry is not the art form. Comics are gonna be fine.
Yeah.
There will always be comics. The industry as we know it, as traditional, local comic shop comic book fans, is going to change. And it has been changing, and it's going to continue to change. This is just kind of a watershed moment. Comics are going to be fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine. And, there will be a lot of unfortunate collateral damage with, like, good, honest mom and pop retailers, like, good people working their asses off who just got knocked out by this. And it's going to suck for them. And it's going to kind of suck for the industry at large to lose them. But they will, yeah, hopefully the industry at large will, like I said, recognize the problems that have, having too much centralization, having too many bottlenecks. Hopefully they'll realize like that's what fucked them, and some other way to make that work moving forward. I mean, realistically, they could be leaning on digital a lot more, but I understand why they're not, as a matter
Sure.
of respect for retailers. At the same time, like, yeah. So like, I see both halves of it. As a creator owned person, I'd be like, nah, fuck that. Like, not my fault. I'm still trying to make a living here. But
Yeah.
as a friend of people who work in retail, like I see it. That's their livelihood too. I get it.
It's a weird
So-
thing because it's that it's that thing where like it makes more sense to go direct to the consumer, but you have all those retailers, you have those shops that we all grew up going to, we all spent time in, and we have fond memories of, but the reality of those existing is dwindling. It's harder and harder and harder. And this, as much as we want them to be there, it's almost like a luxury at this point, yeah, it's a tough thing. It's a tough situation for any of those retailers to deal with. I don't know how they're going to get through it. There's going to be so many tough times for so many comic book stores. I mean, the running a comic book shop is so fucking tough before this. I mean, it's
lean. Yeah.
Yeah. But Tony,
Yeah.
thank you so much for always being a friend of the show. Thank you so much for coming on and
You guys are awesome. Yeah, I'd do anything for either of you. So, but
you're the best.
good luck out there. Stay
Yeah,
safe.
you too.
Yeah.
Be safe. Take care of your family. We love you.
I hope you understand that this was as much for our sanity to kind of keep it together through this shit as anything.
This has been a welcome thing for all of us. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we love you, brother.
Take it easy, guys. I love you.
All right, we'll talk to you later, man. Anytime. All right, that was awesome, man. Always good to talk to Tony.
It is. It is always fun. He is just a great guy and has always been a friend of the show.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Comics.
Do that later this week, right? We're doing it. More shows.
Comics.
Nice little movies. Funny.
Comics.
Wash your hands.